So welcome everybody, Monday Roundtable. Absolutely interesting today because we have a shutdown. We don't know exactly what's happening. We've heard that there's going to be a vote at noon, so that they can hopefully solve the situation, and we'll work on that. So real quick, I'm Dave Lowe. I'm the CEO of isiFederal. For those of you who have not been here before, welcome. It's great to have you guys. And as far as ground rules for everybody, protect your intellectual property. Use your first name of people that we're pursuing. You can talk hypothetical and be open to different opinions, because that's what we're here for. We're here to roundtable. It's not. This is a little bit more of me talking some today because of what's happening today. But if you have any issues, recent efforts, success stories, challenges, you want to throw anything in here, Al, or Sammy, I can't unmute you yet. But you want to throw anything for issues or challenges that you had for this past week?
No, just plugging away
Yeah.
on both sides, government and private sector. So,
Yep. Heard that. So I want to talk about the shutdown because this is a unique thing, right? This doesn't happen all the time. So what does this mean for us with business development? There's a couple things that are just obvious, right? They're not going to be there for us to call, and they're going to find a way to solve this problem. It's not, we didn't start the problem, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But they will pass a budget for fiscal year 2018 that's going to be over $500 billion. We'll see a mini spike in March and April, and the big spend will happen just as it always does in September, right? So we always know what we're looking for September. Now, what I want to talk about, though, is the ability for us to leverage this shutdown. So when I say leverage, I mean using this to our advantage to get to people. What Al or anybody else, if you want to throw in, Chris, you can. What are some of the things that you see that you might be able to leverage a shutdown? How could you leverage it?
well, I guess we were talking last week. So to me, getting with HUD, to find out if they have any circumstances, situation that they need handled and that I can handle, and maybe coming in where it's affordable, because right now, the budget seems to be a big issue with the government. So
it is that. What I'm going to talk about a little bit is using the shutdown as a conversation piece, because one of the biggest problems we have is just cracking open that door between us and whoever it is that we're trying to reach, right? So if we use this as a conversation piece, I got a couple pieces of advice and this goes to negative situations as well, but we want to know what in the world is this meaning to them? What do they think about it? How does it affect them? And what do they need help with right now? So you can parlay. Do you see how that parlays from, hey, what do you think about this crazy stuff that's happened in Washington, D.C.? How does it affect you personally? And I did this last time there was a shutdown. It worked great. And then what do you need help with right now because of that? And just listen to them, and they may give you some really, really good information. They probably will, especially when it comes to having personal information that's happening. First thing to do, though, is realize, first of all, neither of us caused this problem. You didn't cause it with your contracting. We didn't cause it from outside. It's just the knuckleheads that cannot get their act together in Congress, right? That's the problem. Neither of us caused the problem, and neither of us can solve the problem. So as a result of that, we're kind of insulated to be able to say whatever we want, right? We can complain, we can talk about it, but ultimately, the piece that we really want to talk about is what we can solve for them. So we can literally take this conversation piece, this big elephant in the middle of the room, or how does this, shutdown affect you and all that stuff, talk about it, understand it, and then get to a place where we say, hey, obviously I didn't cause a problem. You didn't cause a problem. We're just stuck with this problem. We can't solve it. The only thing we can do is concentrate on what we can solve. So let me tell you what we do. We provide this, and this. Is that on your plate? Or we provide this, and this. Tell me how I can best help you reach those goals. Something that we can both work on together. Do you hear that? How that happened? Did you get that, Al?
Yes.
Yeah, because what we're doing is we're leveraging a negative situation and turning it into a conversation piece that says, I can't solve this problem. You can't solve this problem. But if we work together, we can solve this problem. And this problem happens to be for you, it's janitorial services, right?
Yes.
So take it right down there. What do you think it is? How does it affect you? How can we help you now? Obviously, you didn't cause the problem. I didn't cause the problem. So neither one of us can solve the problem. But what the problem we can solve, or something we can work together on, is we do janitorial services.
Yes,
And we do it in the state of Florida. We do it in Georgia. We do it in other places too. We can do oversight and things like that. How can we work together on something like that? So we went from, did you see how we did it? Negative, moved it right through into a positive, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So, and I see Shree's coming on board too. That's great. I appreciate him being here. Maybe Shree, maybe Jennifer. I don't know. You here, Shree? I can't unmute you. I need to send you an audio pin so that we can talk. But that's the idea. Take this, use it as a conversation piece, leverage it. Leveraging any situation, that's what we need to do in every situation. We need to leverage that situation. So here's the thing. If you're dealing with a negative situation, things like political divisions, this is loaded with them, right? You have right, left, Republican, Democrat that can't get along, big divisions, DACA, whatever you want to throw into that. People get highly emotional and charged about these things, and they have a belief of high impact because of it. If they're connected, some of the people are just like, I don't care. I'm just trying to do my job. I can't do my job if they're not going to pay me. I can't do my job if they're going to say I'm not essential. All those things, all personal things wrapped up in this too. But you have political separations and all those things. Make sure you're paying attention not to connect yourself on either side. Just be there and listen. So here's how to handle it. Be empathetic, listen to them, hear what they have to say, kind of get a sense of how it's affecting their life, right? And then learn exactly, because this is, if you get this right, you can really get some critical information from them and insider information on how they tick and how they think. Why is this important to you? And sometimes they'll say, it's really not important to me. I'd just rather they just get their act together and whatever it happens to be. Or this last time this happened, it created a problem for people because they weren't sure about their paycheck. So tap into what's important to them, and you'll start to get to some of their buying motives as well. The biggest thing, though, is once you've identified, you're empathizing with them. Man, that's really bad. I feel bad for you, and I'm sorry that's happened. Obviously, in the private sector, we don't have those problems like you're having right now in the private sector. We have different problems, but we don't have those problems, right? So most important thing, though, is to then draw that delineation between you and the negative issue. If they associate that negative issue with you, you're done. You will not move forward. In their brain, you're just that, you caused the problem. So what we need to do is draw a clear delineation between you and the negative issue. That's where we say things, well, obviously it's not your fault, certainly not my fault. They can't get their act together. There's your delineation. We're drawing a delineation saying this is not a let me do this. Let me unmute. There you go, Shree. I got you unmuted, I think. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dave.
So draw a clear delineation between you and the negative issue, and then you have to make sure you get buy-in from the prospect that you actually achieve that separation. So being able to say, it wasn't my fault, it certainly wasn't your fault, right? Trial closed. No, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't either one of our faults. Have them say that. You define that you've separated yourself from the negative situation. Now you can leverage what you just did because you have the buy-in from them, and now you can move to align yourself on the same side of the table. If it happens to be janitorial services, then you can say, hey, this is what we can work on together. So you and I could be working together on the same side. We're on the same side. We didn't cause the problem. We're obviously not on that side of the problem. So now you can align yourself to being on the same side of the table and finally set that common goal, right? You want to get a common goal, say, hey, why don't we work on this together? And then start working on it together right then. And then start working towards that outcome. In your instance, Al, you're talking about getting to getting to janitorial services. In your instance, Sri, you're talking about GIS. You're talking about IT services, right? So, any questions about that? Al, you got any questions about that? Sri, you got any?
No, I'm just a little concerned. They're talking about my employees reached out and asking, do I need to go to work today? And I told them, well, the contracting people didn't say anything not to. So, yeah, since we're new to this, how are this generally handled? Would they let the contractors go, or do we need to reach out to them? I'm planning on reaching out to my COR and asking them.
Yeah, it depends on where they are.
2013.
It literally depends on where they are. So you missed the first part of it. So I'm going to go down this slide for you. First, they're not there. There's no reason to reach out to them right now because they're not there. They will get their act together. They will pass a budget for fiscal year 2018, and there'll be a mini spike in March and April, just like there always is, and a big spend, obviously, in September. Make sense?
Okay.
All right. So
sounds good.
So with this directly can affect and help us with our planning in 2018. It fits right into the plan because we can get some insider information. We can get this insider information is good personal information too. We can figure out what's important to them. You can ask them why they even decided to join the federal government in the first place, for God's sakes. You didn't expect this to happen when you joined. I had a lady last time it happened. She just came from the private sector because it was a mess. The private sector was a mess back in 2007. I think that's when the last one was, right? So, or 2008, whenever it was. But the private sector was a mess. So she just jumped from the private.
2013, right?
What's that?
2013 didn't happen.
Was it 2013?
No, last shutdown was.
Oh yeah. 2013. I'm sorry. Yeah, 2013. And the private sector was in flux. She jumped from the private sector into the federal government because of stability. And next thing you know, she's being furloughed because she's not a non-essential personnel. Can you imagine the impact of that, by the way, in your psychological piece, where all of a sudden you're non-essential personnel? Good grief. That just is so, it's such an endearing term, right? To call somebody non-essential. Anyhow, but we can use this to get insider information. Ultimately, we're working towards influencing the scope, getting shortlisted and protected sales sole source if you can. But the idea is we can leverage this to have a great communication and say, hey, man, we made it through that crazy shutdown. And bonding over a negative issue. I mean, can you imagine? Here's a classic, right? Anybody seen the movie Sully? Anybody see that?
Yep.
Right? So you had Sullenberger, right? He lands a freaking plane in the Hudson in the water. And first of all, nobody's ever done that like that. So that's why it was fascinating. And so you have a group of people that were on that plane or a group of people that were associated with servicing that. And they could have been the rescue side, but in the plane, you're in a crisis. That's a crisis. Life and death crisis. They're bonded for life through a negative situation that ultimately turned out positive. Turns out positive. Tom Hanks is playing you in a movie. Come on. And that's a great positive, right? So again, you can always leverage a negative situation provided that you can separate yourself from that. And you watch the movie, he had to separate himself from that negative situation because they were blaming him for not making it back to the airport. It's crazy. Or they were trying to anyway, because they're trying to assign blame. And ultimately, they figured out, hey, he's really a hero. So in this situation, you can be at least an empathetic hero. to people that are there. All right. Any other questions or issues before we jump? I don't want to keep everybody too awfully long today because there's not a lot to do. But do we have any?
So Dave,
Yeah.
quick question. So you mentioned there will be a spike because of this when things do get in place and
Yes.
so
Usually
when the budget is approved, you think they're gonna go on a buying spree at that point, or
I call it a mini spike. If you
okay?
look at if you look at your purchasing patterns, obviously after September, everything hits the floor, right? Everything's pretty much in maintenance mode,
Right.
and we've been in maintenance mode since then because we've been operating under continuing resolution, right? So
Yeah.
so it goes on, and there's little bumps and things in there. You may see a couple of things that pop up, but so they have a bunch of things that they wanted to do in September but couldn't get it through. So you have some of those things that pop up in March, April, sometimes May, but depending on, it just really depends. But if there will be a mini spike, and then it'll settle back down, usually in May and June, because they're working on the budget really for fiscal year 2019 budget, because they're looking at, and they're also gearing up to figure out what they can do for fiscal year 2018, right? So as they're moving through this, you see a little mini spike because they got the money, they got some funding, they can do some things that they already either had on their plate or something that's urgent, right? So if you have your emergency situations and things like that, but ultimately that's what we normally see. And then July, August, and September, obviously, you know what happens there.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where the key is.
Got it.
Any other questions from anybody? You can ask more, Sri.
Yeah, I may reach out to you. What is the schedule like today?
My schedule's actually pretty clean. I had a couple of calls that I was going to have today that aren't happening. Now, at noon, they might change, and they might solve the problem, but whoever didn't come in today is not coming in today, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Yeah, because it does affect it affects the briefing schedules because we can't invite. It doesn't make any sense to invite anybody. It doesn't make any sense to follow up with anybody until they get this straight. And it puts things in a slight state of flux, but the people that we reach out to, that's what we're talking about here. There's things that happen in the business. There's nothing you can do about it. What are you going to do? Not anything we can do about it. So, any other questions? Anybody else want to throw in? Sammy, I can't hear you because I need you to I'm gonna send that audio pin one more time just in case you can get it, and plug that in. But if not, glad that you guys came. Any other things you guys want to throw in here before we jump? All right. Well, I'm going to leave you with this, just like I always do, engaging your prospects. Somebody's going to be sold. Either you're going to sell them that you are valuable enough to meet with, or they're going to sell you that you're not valuable enough to meet with. And that's just the way it is. But if we come from that perspective, good things happen because we can play it as a game, and we can also just look at it and say, hey, I just didn't make the bar for being able to build enough value in that particular call or that particular meeting or that particular proposal, right? So somebody's going to be sold. And with that, I'm going to let everybody go. But thanks for joining me today. And if you have any questions, I will be around today and answering anything if you want to reach out. All right, guys, that's about it. Thanks, guys.
All right. Appreciate it, Dave.
Yep.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.